Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest, Sophia Rose, who's here to share with us her new book, Until Shiloh Comes, Testimony of a Living God. Can a single moment of surrender change your life forever? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Sophia Rose is a full-time traveler and freelance writer with a master's degree in immunology and a teaching certificate in K-8 education. She's the managing editor of a major scientific reference work and writes evidence-based information for clinicians. Sophia is also the author of the forthcoming science fiction fantasy series for middle-aged school children, The Forest Chronicles. So welcome to the show, Sophia Rose.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Well, it's such an honor to have you here. What inspired you to write this book?
You know, I wrote this book because God asked me to. And I know that's a really bold statement, especially from someone like me who, most of my adult life, I couldn't even say the word God. It brought to mind this judge in the sky who was checking out, did I do things right or wrong? And I just knew that couldn't be right. So it was a lot more comfortable for me to say, when I wanted to refer to something greater than myself, to refer to the universe or all that is. And that really worked for me. Because when you say the universe, it sounds like this benevolent force of good. And that's how I felt. But I had no idea that that universe cared for me specifically, or even knew me specifically. And that's kind of where I was until I met a man of God, a man named Shiloh Kairos. And he completely transformed my life and everything I thought I knew. And he healed very old, deep wounds that I didn't even know I had. And he brought me to God in a very powerful and incredible way. And so 3 years after I met him and he guided me on this long journey of healing, God asked me to write about Shiloh and all he had done for me. And so I did.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story with us, and I kind of want to dive in a little bit more because I know you experienced a great loss that led you also on this path.
I did. When my youngest son was 18 years old, he died by suicide. And that was the most obviously devastating thing that had ever happened to me. And it was so indescribably difficult that I can't even try to explain what that was like. It led me to try to really live my life in a way that I hadn't tried to before. And after that, it was a few years after that, I decided I was going to sell everything I own. And with a little suitcase, I moved to Egypt. I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually running away. But I thought I was just living a good life. I was gonna live the life that he had declined to do. So there I was, living in this little Bedouin town in the Sinai Peninsula, and I thought I had done what I needed to do. I was traveling and working online and spending time on the beach, and this is a good life, right? I didn't have any idea how completely wrong I was. So one evening I was walking at dusk along the shore, and I had this moment where it's very hard to explain when your perspective shifts so profoundly that you see everything with this great clarity, and I could see myself as though from outside of myself. And I saw how lost I was. I was so completely lost. And then, but as I was looking at myself, I didn't have any judgment. It wasn't a negative thing. It was just, wow, I am really lost. And right after that thought came another knowing, and that was that everything I had done to heal from my son's death, from actually way before that, from a very troubled childhood and 2 really traumatic marriages, everything that I had done was completely ineffective. And not only that, I had no idea what to do next. So here I am, this extremely lost puppy with no game plan. And I knew it. I was like, wow, I got nothing. I have nothing. And in that moment, it was like I could feel something in my chest. And it was the deepest yearning of my heart that I had never gotten down to before, because I always thought I was in charge of what was going on. I didn't know that I wasn't. So as soon as I gave up and said, wow, I'm lost and I don't know what to do, this thing came up inside me and I spoke the words, and it was a prayer, and it was a prayer to that great unknown that I called the universe. And I said, please, I need a spiritual guide. And I could hear the truth of it, and I felt relief. And then the very next moment, my mind kind of like said, nope. And I said to myself, you would never trust anyone with that. And I thought that is also true. So I had these 2 truths. I needed help. I needed a spiritual guide, but I also would not trust anyone. And so I did what I always do when I don't know what to do. You know, you put a smile on your face and you walk on and you just carry on. And that's what I did. I had no idea that prayer was going to be answered. It didn't even occur to me that anyone heard. But a few days later, I met Shiloh. And boy, that changed everything, I have to say.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Sophia Rose in regards to her new book, Until Shiloh Comes, Testimony of a Living God. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed, and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Mary Ann. We're here today with special guest, Sophia Rose, who's sharing with us her new book, Until Shiloh Comes, Testimony of a Living God. When you first met Shiloh, what was your initial impression of him?
I figured I knew he was a healer because the people who had tried to introduce me to him several times, I kept refusing, because I wasn't going to go there. I had seen many healers, spiritual teachers, guru types over my life, because I had had a lot of trauma. So I was trying to fix it. And I was not interested in that. And eventually, when I met him, he just seemed extremely kind. And I have to say, somewhat enigmatic. I think that's the word that most comes to mind when I thought about that first meeting. But it was the second time that I spoke to him that just actually blew my mind. And what happened was I was sitting on the beach, as I like to do, and he walked along and saw me and joined me, and we spoke, a little bit, and then we just kind of sat there. It was a nice, comfortable, companionable silence. And he looked over at me and he said, wow, I remember that moment. He said, you have an issue with body image and it really holds you back. Marianne, I can't explain to you how blown out of the water I was by that statement because I had never told anyone, well, except my daughter who noted it, that I had a body image problem. And it was a very serious problem. I thought I couldn't even go in the water because I didn't want to expose myself in my bathing suit, which I was wearing, hoping that I might be able to go into the water. It was really hot. And I couldn't go in because I was so ashamed of how I looked. And 15 years of therapists, no one had ever uncovered this. And here he is sitting there for 2 minutes and he's like, wow, you have this problem. And then he said another thing that I never wanted to admit to anyone because I was also ashamed of it. And he just said, it's okay. That some people have that. And I was like, how does he know this about me? I had not spoken of any of my issues, anything to him. And it kind of freaked me out. I was afraid. I was actually afraid to speak. And I excused myself and went back to my room and I cried for a very long time. And then I texted him and said, can we have a healing session? Which was a very big deal for me because I had sworn off this because I didn't trust anyone, So the next day he met with me and he just said one sentence. And it was like when he said this sentence, it was like he ripped off a bandage that had been over my heart since I was young, where I was just repressing everything that had ever happened to me. But what he said, because of all you've been through, you have shut down and you don't trust anyone. It was more than the words. It was the fact that for the first time in my life, I felt like someone saw me. He saw every part of me. And I had never experienced being seen like that before. And I immediately just lost it. I probably cried the very ugly cry for about 15 minutes. And he just waited. And then after I finished, I looked up at him and I said, well, what should I have done? Because everybody I've ever known has betrayed me. And it was true. I felt. And he said, whoa, I'm not asking you to trust anyone because people are wounded. And I was like, yeah. I knew that. I felt like, okay, I got that. And then the next thing he said was the most important thing that he could have ever said to me, which is, I am asking you to trust God because he has never betrayed you. And again, I said nothing. I was so stunned. I was stunned by this. And I felt in that moment, Marianne, it was like he took this dead ember of my broken heart, and he blew on it somehow, literally felt like there was this little flicker of hope that rose up in that moment. And then he said, if you ask God for a sign that he is near and he hears you, you will receive it. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to try that, and it was amazing. And that was all in 15, 20 minutes. The next day I went out to the water, to a really secluded area. And I went up to my neck in the water and I did exactly what he said. Now I was terrified, right? Because when you realize that your whole life is a loss and you have no idea what to do and you have an instruction, try this, ask God for a sign. It's terrifying. What if I didn't get the sign? What if I didn't get a sign? And it took me a long time, probably half an hour, to say the words, God, send me a sign that you hear me. And I didn't even have to wait 5 seconds. I immediately, in the distance, right as I was thinking, I wonder how long I have to wait, I could see something. I have very good eyesight, and the reef was about 300 yards out, and I could see something coming towards me straight as an arrow. Something, it's unnatural for nature to move like this, right? But it was a ripple in the water, and I had no idea what it was. And I watched it the whole time come towards me, and it stopped right in front of me, about 18 inches from my nose, and it was a conger eel. And I just stood at it and stared at this eel for a good minute or so, watching the fin on its back, just steady right in front of me. And I chose to believe in that moment that God had sent a sign. And that is what changed my life.
What a remarkable journey. And from that point, how would you say your perspective on faith and your healing shifted?
The biggest shift for me, and it was actually quite gradual because I was so unused to it, was to rely on something other than myself for everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Like if I get up in the morning, is it I don't get to decide what to do, because if I'm going to live a life based on trust and faith, then I need to ask God. This is what Shiloh didn't just tell me, he showed it to me. And we had 2 months where I pretty much saw him almost every day, and I would just stare at him like, wow, every single thing that he did was at the request of God. And he was quite open about it. And it was so remarkable to see that. And I was able to model my trust by watching him. And that's the biggest thing that changed, was whenever there's an issue, I just give it to God. And that's what he taught me. Every issue. Everything.
What would you say was your most profound lesson you learned from Shiloh?
Honestly, it's that God loves me. That's it. I truly did not know that. I mean, I thought God was love, but I didn't know he loved me, It's something you hear as a child and you don't quite really know how to take that in. But when you see it for yourself in every moment, that's it. And I think that love is the most profound thing. Yeah, it is.
Well, it definitely was a profound journey you've been on. What role do you think that surrender played in your healing and transformation?
Oh, Marianne, this is the most difficult thing, and it's something I work on every single day, perhaps every moment of every single day. This is the thing, is that we have thoughts and we have desires and we have preferences and we have ideas and beliefs that have built up over a lifetime, and to give those up, it's a complicated process, because you have to notice that you are acting out of your own thoughts rather than being surrendered to what God brings to you. This is a major, it's what Shiloh spoke about constantly to me, to remind ourselves in every moment that what God brings is what we have to accept and surrender to, because it is perfect, because God brought it to us.
How would you say that your life has changed since this journey?
My life has changed entirely, from the friends I have to what I do every day. I now have a peace that I never experienced before. I was always trying so hard to be a good person, to do the right thing, to know what to do, especially to know what to do. I really wanted to know what I was supposed to be doing. And to be seen as someone who is competent and capable. And none of that feels important anymore. The most important thing is to hear God and to seek God. And everything else falls into place after that. That I think is the biggest change.
Sophia, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about Until Shiloh Comes?
UntilShilohComes.com is the website where people can sign up to have notifications, and they can also find information on Shiloh and how to connect with him. Yeah.
Well, Sophia, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Sophia. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Until Shiloh Comes, Testimony of a Living God. Until Shiloh Comes is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. To learn more about Until Shiloh Comes and Sophia Rose, please visit untilshilohcomes.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.